The arena fell silent as Commander Zekthar raised his plasma rifle. Across the dusty ground stood the human, unarmed, unarmored, and impossibly calm. The Velkari had worshipped their precursor gods for 10,000 cycles, believing in the divine truth inscribed in the Temple of Eternal Law. All flesh has limits. All creatures know their place. Humans, the recent arrivals to the Galactic Council, had been challenging that truth for merely 3 standard years. "This is foolishness," Zekthar announced, his mandibles clicking nervously. "Surrender now, human. Your kind may be resilient, but you cannot defy physics itself." The human, Captain Sarah Chen of the Terran Expeditionary Fleet, rolled her shoulders and smiled. "Try me." The gathered delegates from 47 species watched from the reinforced observation platforms. This duel had been sanctioned by the Council after humanity's repeated violations of what the precursors had deemed physically possible. Too many reports of humans surviving in conditions that killed other species. Too many instances of them accomplishing feats that contradicted established biological law. The precursors, ancient beings who had seeded the galaxy with civilizations millions of years ago, had left behind strict doctrines. Every species had been told their limitations, their maximum capabilities, their place in the cosmic order. The Velkari could withstand pressures that would crush most beings. The Silthran could perceive wavelengths beyond normal vision. The Gornathi possessed strength that broke stone, but each species knew where their gods had drawn the line, except humans. Zekthar fired. The plasma bolt screamed through the air at 3,000 meters per second, a superheated projectile that had vaporized Durasteel targets in demonstrations. It glowed brilliant azure, ionizing the atmosphere in its wake. According to every scientific model, according to every sacred text, no biological being could react to such speed without extensive cybernetic enhancement. Sarah Chen's hand blurred. The watching aliens saw it happen but couldn't process what their eyes reported. The human's arm moved, impossibly, incomprehensibly fast, and her gloved hand closed around the plasma bolt mid-flight. The energy weapon's discharge, enough to punch through armor plating, simply stopped. Sarah held the roiling ball of superheated plasma in her grip, her armored glove absorbing and dispersing the energy through heat-sink channels. She'd caught it like someone might catch a thrown ball at a summer game back on Earth. The silence shattered into chaos. "Impossible!" shrieked Ambassador Thelzara, her crystalline form refracting light in distress patterns. "The precursor codex states reaction time cannot exceed." "Your codex is wrong," Sarah said calmly, crushing the plasma bolt into harmless particles. "Or maybe your precursors just never met a human before." Zekthar's rifle clattered to the ground. His 4 eyes were wide with what could only be described as existential terror. "The gods, they defined our limits. They showed us our boundaries. How can you exist beyond them?" Sarah walked forward, each step measured and deliberate. "Maybe that's your problem. You were told what you couldn't do, so you believed it. We humans, nobody gave us a manual. Nobody told us our limits," she grinned. "So we just kept pushing to see what would happen." High Arbiter Korshen descended from his platform, his ancient form trembling. He was one of the oldest beings in the Council, having studied the precursor texts for 700 years. "This cannot be. The biological parameters, the neural processing speeds, the muscular response thresholds, all species operate within the bounds established at creation." "Did your precursors actually test those bounds?" Sarah asked. "Or did they just write down what they assumed and call it holy law?" The question hung in the air like a curse. Dr. Yelmoth, the Council's chief xenobiologist, was furiously analyzing the recorded data on his holographic display. His translator voice trembled as he spoke. "The human's neural synapses fired at speeds that should cause catastrophic cellular damage. Her muscle fibers contracted beyond the structural stress limits we've documented. The impact force she absorbed should have shattered every bone in her arm." He looked up, his 6 eyes blinking in a synchronous confusion. "Yet there is no damage. No tears, no breaks. It's as if the limits you think exist are just guidelines we choose to ignore," Sarah finished. Zekthar fell to his knees, a gesture of profound submission in Velkari culture. "We have built our civilization on the foundation of knowing our place. If the precursors lied about the limits, what else did they lie about?" "Maybe they didn't lie," Sarah offered, her voice gentler now. "Maybe they just got it wrong. Or maybe, and this is what I think, They never tested your species the way life tested us. She gestured to the assembled aliens. You were all given paradise worlds, weren't you? Planets perfectly suited to your biology, resources aplenty, no real challenges. But Earth? She laughed, though there was no humor in it. Earth tried to kill us every single day. Ice ages, supervolcanoes, predators, diseases, starvation. We didn't survive because we were the strongest or the fastest. We survived because we were too stubborn to quit and too creative to accept impossible as an answer. Ambassador Thelzara's voice was barely a whisper. The precursors gave us comfort and called it blessing. They gave you hardship and it was the greatest gift we never knew we needed, Sarah completed. High Arbiter Korshan looked at the sacred tablet he carried, a direct transcription of precursor law. For centuries he had used it to settle disputes, to define what was and wasn't possible. Now it felt like a chain rather than wisdom. What do we do now? He asked. And for the first time in his long life he sounded lost. Sarah Chen smiled, not with arrogance but with the warmth of someone offering a hand up. Now? Now you start asking what if instead of we can't. You start testing your own limits instead of accepting what you were told. And if you want... She extended her hand toward the Arbiter. We humans can show you how. Across the arena, 47 species looked at each other with dawning realization. Their gods hadn't lied exactly. But they had built a cage of comfort and called it destiny. The humans, thrown into a crucible without guidance or mercy, had simply refused to accept that cages existed. As the delegates filed out, whispering in dozens of languages about revolution and possibility, Zekthar remained kneeling in the dust. He looked up at Sarah. Will you teach us? He asked. Will you show us how to be more? Sarah pulled him to his feet. The first lesson is easy, Commander. Stop asking permission from dead gods to be amazing. She grinned that infectious human grin. The second lesson? That's where things get interesting. Behind them, the ancient arena, built to demonstrate the supremacy of divine law, stood witness to its own obsolescence. The age of limits was ending. The age of humanity's defiant question, yeah, but what if we tried anyway, had begun.